Welcome, everybody. I'm Rebecca Wetton. I'm the co-founder and head coach at Catch. Welcome to Mind Over Meters. This is our second live Catch masterclass, all around swim psychology. Feel free to drop a quick intro into the chat. Say hello. Tell us anything that you're swimming towards, where you're based. That would be really nice. There'll be some time at the end for a Q&A. A few things about today's session before we get cracking, which is you will receive the recording for this and a couple of follow-ups by email. So yeah, don't worry if you're not able to kind of take everything in this time around. You'll get another chance to. And we'll do a few short activities as part of Rachel's session. There's one activity in particular that you might want some pen and paper for. And yeah, we're going to keep everyone muted for the main first bit of the masterclass. And then there'll be a chance at the end to come off mute and ask any of your questions directly. And we can have a bit of a chit chat. But do feel free to drop questions in the chat as we go. The chat is the little speech bubble at the bottom of the screen. So yeah, I suppose a little background for today. Catch, the principles of Catch is all about making it really easy to transform your swimming. So the topic today, I feel really speaks to that. Having a growth mindset is something I certainly feel very passionate about when it comes to swimming, but also life generally. It's a really brilliant way of like creating a more positive relationship with your swimming, but also has huge performance benefits. So I like to think of a growth mindset as a legal performance enhancing drug, if you will. So I'm really delighted to introduce today's expert, Rachel Collins. This is the second of 4 sessions we're doing with Rachel. She is a psychology coach with a background in competitive swimming and endurance sport. She's going to share some practical science-backed tools today to help you develop a growth mindset. And the hopes are that you'll be able to start applying these skills to your swimming straight away. So even for your swims this week. So over to you, Rachel.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. Hi, everybody. Right, I'm just going to share my screen, get this presentation up. Okay, and let me just put it in full view and go back to the beginning. Here we go. Is that all okay? Yeah, brilliant.
Looks great.
Thank you. Yes, welcome. So this evening, as Rebecca has said, we are going to look at a growth mindset. This presentation will be roughly half an hour or so, so we'll definitely have some time for questions at the end. And yeah, I hope you find it useful, and then please, yeah, feel free to ask me any questions you'd like to at the end. Okay, let's get that there. So without further ado, I don't know whether all of you were kind of here the last time. I'm assuming you probably were, so I don't think I'll go into this slide too much because I know that I introduced myself last time. But as Rebecca said, I am a psychology coach. I work with all different kinds of athletes from a range of sports, from amateur level up to yeah, national, international level. So I also give presentations such as this, and really just want to help people to understand the power that psychology has within sport, and how that can be easily yeah, put into kind of the physical training that you're already doing. So, session today. First of all, we're actually just going to break down what a mindset is. And then we will look at a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. So what is that? What does that mean? We will then look to see how we can build a growth mindset. So ways in which we can start to try and implement this. And then we will have a little go at a mental skill at the end, which is a practical tool that you can go away with and use and fully supports a growth mindset. Okay, so what is a mindset? When we think about a mindset, I think the most kind of basic way to explain it would be the kind of mental approach that we take to a task. If we were to look at that on a slightly deeper level, so a mindset is a set of beliefs that shape how you make sense of the world and how you make sense of yourself. So a mindset can influence the way that you think, the way that you feel, and then the way that you behave in any given situation. So what you believe about yourself can directly impact whether you succeed or fail in a task. And for those of you that like to watch a bit of athletics, Noah Lyles said that sprinting is 90% mental and 10% physical. So he believes that a strong mindset can win you the race along with physical ability. So if Niall Lyle says it, then it must be true. So what is a fixed mindset? Now, a fixed mindset is when you believe that your ability is fixed, the traits are fixed, and that can't be changed. So you believe that your talent and intelligence alone will lead to success, and that actually effort is not required. As opposed to a growth mindset, where you believe that your abilities can improve with time and practice and effort, and you start to face challenges as opportunities to learn, as opposed to reasons to give up. So a bit of kind of research to back this up. There was a systematic review that was done, and that included 29 previous studies. So it takes the results of a group of previous studies and looks at the overall effect across those 29 different studies. It found that mindfulness can benefit athletes' mindset and performance. And the reason why I put this in is because mindfulness will be the tool that we're going to have a look at later for a mental skill. So it's shown to support the change in mindset. And that champion athletes attribute their good mindset as a main predictor of competitive success. So that's just kind of not, instead of me just telling you that mindset works, it's actually been tested and proved across a whole range of sports and across a whole range of different studies. So I want to go through some growth first fix mindset examples, and this is to really help to show you a breakdown of the difference. And then after this, I'm going to get you to start thinking about some potential examples that you may have yourself, and that might not be necessarily in swimming, that can be in life as well. But I think this will just help to show you, the difference, and also just start to create that awareness of, okay, are my thoughts currently in a fixed mindset, or are they currently in a growth mindset? Or is there one aspect or area of life where things feel more fixed than something else, for example? So I'm going to take injury, because I think injury is something that unfortunately most of us have probably experienced, or even as poor Rebecca there, illness as well. So injury or illness, and that can really tamper with the kind of plan that we have for that kind of week, month, however long the injury / illness lasts for. So if you think about a fixed mindset, when you're injured, you might say to yourself something like, oh, I'm always going to have this kind of weakness here in my body. My training won't be able to be the same now. You might even say, I can't get over this injury. So that would be something that is a fixed mindset, because you feel as though you can't move on from where you are once you get injured or once you get ill. Whereas if you think of injury coming from a growth mindset, you might say things like, I'm currently injured, but this is an opportunity for me to learn as an athlete. So firstly, you might want to start analysing, okay, well, what was happening in the lead up to the injury? What was my training like? How was my nutrition? Was I getting enough rest? Did I have any other life stresses that were going on that were putting more strain on the body? So you can start to break things down and start to look at what potentially led up to that. Then you can ask yourself, okay, well, I can only focus on the now. So what is it that I can do today in order to help to get me stronger? It's an opportunity when you're injured to explore different avenues. So it might be that you partake in some other forms of training. Maybe you have a bit more of a focus on strength training to rehabilitate that area. Maybe you cross train and do some other different types of cardio that you wouldn't ordinarily do. And you can say to yourself that I will overcome this. And each day I'm laying the foundation to come back stronger, both physically and mentally. And when you approach an injury in this way, automatically you're looking for ways to succeed. You're looking for ways to overcome, to grow. And so that's really like the pinch point, as opposed to a kind of fixed mindset where everything, you know, there's the kind of negative spiral that happens and goes with that. Now, saying that, what I will say is it's important to, of course, have that period of, well, God, this is, you know, rubbish. Everything feels a bit, you know, oh, what am I going to do? And maybe even a bit of panic mixed in there. And eventually you'll come to this kind of acceptance phase where you're like, okay, this is how it is now. Like, where do I go from here? And that's where, at that point, if you adopt that growth mindset, you should hopefully, be in the best frame of mind to overcome that. So let's talk about motivation. So if you had a fixed mindset and you were struggling, you know, with your motivation, you might say something like, well, I can't change how I feel. I feel demotivated, and that's just how it's going to be. So that's the kind of like language you may use. Whereas if you were looking at a growth mindset, you might say, okay, well, what can I do to change that? How can I increase my internal motivation? How can I kind of pick myself back up and get myself back interested in the sport that I'm doing? And it may be that you're looking to master a new skill. So that could be a way you want to learn something new, you want to grow as a swimmer. And so maybe you look a little bit more into a technical drill, or maybe you focus a little bit more on racing tactics, and maybe that sparks your motivation. Maybe there's some more mental training that you feel like you can do, or maybe you want to get a little bit more knowledgeable around nutrition. And hopefully by wanting to master and learn a new skill, you will then start to increase that internal motivation. Once you can start using that knowledge that you've learned, that will help to add to the results, and results obviously help with motivation. And so it's just this really like positive domino effect that happens. Stress. Now, we've all struggled with stress, and that obviously doesn't just mean during swimming, during training. If you're preparing for a certain race, you know, that can be anything in life. But if you have a fixed mindset, you may say to yourself, well, I'm just a person that gets stressed, like I can't change it, it's part of my personality, for example. Whereas if you have a growth mindset, you might say to yourself that, okay, how can I manage these stress and nerves and then turn them to use them to my advantage? So you want to understand things like your arousal curve. So when you're feeling nervous and you're feeling stressed, where is that optimum zone for you? When you get to the top, that's where the ultimate zone is for you to change that stress into like channeled energy. But if you become over aroused, or if you're like under aroused, then that's where you kind of, it's more hindering than it is helping. So you need to reframe some thoughts. So like, I can use these nerves as channeled energy, or these butterflies that I'm feeling in my tummy are a sign that my body's ready to go. So just by kind of tweaking those little things can really help to bring us up to that kind of optimal point, to then use that kind of stress and those nerves as something that's going to help us. Now, I just wanted to add a little bit about kind of anxiety or anxious thoughts, although I could most definitely do a whole kind of presentation on this, but I didn't want to ignore it because I feel like there's obviously apprehension and there's nerves and there's stress, but there's also a kind of much deeper level whereby anxiety can obviously hinder many people. So people that kind of feel maybe anxious before a race or even a training or even just day to day, if we kind of take that into a growth mindset instead of something that is happening to us and use that more in our own power, then we can say that anxiety is just our protective mechanism, okay? And that anxious thoughts don't actually hold any truth. So they're just kind of the brain's way of trying to work out situations. But what we actually need to do is to dissociate ourselves from those thoughts, because anxious thoughts aren't actually factual, okay? And then the last one, let's say you're kind of having a bit of a performance plateau. So if you were in a fixed mindset, you might say, well, I'm stuck in a rut. I can't get out of this myself, like no matter what I tried. Whereas if you had a growth mindset, you can say, well, I can always grow as an athlete. If I feel stuck in my performance, then that means it's time to shake things up. What can I try to change? How can I change my training sessions? Maybe it's my pre-race routine. It's my mentality. Talk to other athletes, see what they're doing, see if you can take any inspiration from them. And so these are just kind of 4 examples of some things that I would imagine that all of us have experienced from time to time. And it's just about how we can take what we're currently feeling about something and change our mindset to a growth and learning and kind of that inspirational, positive mindset in order to then move forward with that. So what I thought would be nice is to kind of do a little task. So I stopped talking for a couple of minutes, get you guys to just think about 1 or 2 examples where you could currently feel like you could adopt more of a growth mindset. So this might be something that's coming up, for example, in training sessions. It might be around your fueling for training or competitions. It could be around race strategy, your mental state during training or competition. So for example, you might be saying, well, I'll never grasp how I'm going to fuel myself properly before and during a race. So that might be something that you kind of say to yourself, but maybe you don't quite have the awareness right now that that is actually quite a fixed mindset. So then it's about turning that around and saying, okay, what can I learn instead? So if you had a more growth mindset, you might say something like, okay, well, at the moment, I'm struggling to understand how it is that I can fuel myself properly, but I'm going to dedicate 15 to 20 minutes a week on watching YouTube videos or attending another webinar whereby I can learn a lot about nutrition. Yeah, and you just start to kind of change that outlook. So I'm going to give you, a few minutes now, just to write down something where you feel as though currently you're quite fixed about something. You don't feel like you can change or move on from where you are. And then write down then an example of how you could change that into a growth mindset. Okay, I'll let you do that. If you'd like to share in the chat, I'd love to read a couple of your examples. But of course, if you want to keep it private and not share, that's absolutely fine as well. Thank you for kicking us off, Rebecca. My growth mindset is around feeling too busy. Yeah. So currently you're feeling like I can't find the time to swim more than twice a week at the moment. And you can change that to I will make the time, and this is where I will fit in that extra string, and this is why it matters. Yeah, excellent. So I think actually that kind of like time constraint happens a lot for a lot of people, and you feel like, well, that's it, I don't have the time. But when you actually kind of start looking at your week and breaking down and seeing like, oh, well, yeah, do I need to do that there? Can I buddy those things up? Like, where can I slot this in? And then making that kind of dedication to doing that and kind of proving to yourself that actually I do have the time. It's just like prioritizing what it is that I've got going on. So yeah, Vicky. I once had a panic attack at the start of the race in the water, which led me to believe at the start of every race that this would happen again. Yeah, my fixed mindset, you will panic at the start of every race. You do, and you can't help it. Growth mindset, I can implement visualizations to combat this. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. Sorry to hear about the panic attack, and I think especially with anxiety, it kind of does kind of like spiral to make you think that, well, this is going to happen every time now. But yeah, visualization is a fantastic technique to kind of show yourself, okay, well, if I imagine that actually I'm not going to, and I have a much more positive start to the race, and then when you come to actually doing it, your brain's going to be like, oh, we've done this, we've been here before, and everything's going to be fine, and I'm going to start out how I want to. So yeah, that's really excellent. Simon, couldn't get my head around interval training in swimming. I was swimming one pace only with no idea how to develop. Having had a conversation with Rebecca and seeing the sessions written, plus how to use my watch properly, means intervals are a much more regular part of my training. And that's a really great example. Thank you, Simon, because I think that whole like speaking to others, whether that's coaches, whether that's other kind of swimming buddies, I think it's so important to kind of see what other people are doing, and then you use that as your kind of growth mindset of like, okay, let's try and learn as much as I can from others, and then I'm going to adopt that myself moving forward. So that's really great. And Wendy said, I was feeling very stuck at the same pace. I've now started using the Catch app, and I'm really enjoying the structure of the sets. Yeah, brilliant. I mean, changing up what you're doing, thinking like, okay, there's new ways to kind of create this and make it fun, or, you know, whatever that may be. And so we kind of grow into that. So that's amazing. Nelly, I have problems in open water, working on it. I'm really scared about my wetsuit. Still have not figured it out. Yeah. And I think that it's probably, Rebecca could probably speak more on that than me, but I think that's probably something that's very common for people. And so it's about then saying, okay, well, how can I kind of use this growth mindset? So you could even say, I acknowledge that I'm really scared at the moment. What's the next baby step that I can take in order to make myself feel safer, or in order to, kind of grow into that? You don't obviously have to take the leap straight away, but how could I kind of break that down and get to where I want to go? So brilliant. Thank you so much for your examples, and I really appreciate that. We will move on to how to build a growth mindset. So I've kind of got 5 steps, and I feel like these are just like really nice things to think about in terms of easy things that you can start doing now that can help this kind of growth mindset to develop and flourish. If you already, it sounds like a lot of you already have some idea about that. So number 1, notice your current mindset. And this is both during training and competition, okay? So notice where you are currently at. If we think of like fixed and growth mindset on a spectrum, like where would you probably roughly rate yourself at the moment, both during training and during competition? Having that recognition is really important, because it makes us kind of realize the kind of how far, or the steps that we need to take in order to get up to this kind of growth mindset. A really simple trick is to think about the words and language that we use. Now, that can simply be saying things that are more positively based. And it's very amazing how this very small change in our language can change the way that we think. Now, without kind of getting too scientific, we have a kind of default way that we speak to ourselves. And that might be different to the way that we speak to others. And so just by recognizing the language and the words that we're using in our kind of everyday thoughts and voice to ourselves can really help to open up that avenue to try to say things more positively, to try to catch ourselves when, oh, no, that didn't sound very positive. How can I reframe that? And the more we do it, the more we will naturally become more positive in our default. Try to really think of setbacks as opportunities and not threats. Now, I know this is easier said than done, and that's why I said initially there's okay to have that phase of like, oh God, this, you know, feels big, overwhelming, maybe even a bit panicky. But once that's kind of settled, then you got to think, okay, how am I going to turn this around? What can I learn? What can I get out of this experience? And that will really help to kind of fuel the desire to want to overcome those challenges. It will then give us so much confidence once we have that we've kind of managed to get through that, and we start building up that kind of confidence bank in ourselves, so that later on when new challenges come, where we go, well, that's okay, I've got my toolkit, I know how to do this. So asking for feedback in training and in competition. So feedback is so vital, and it's great, you know, if you've got like Rebecca as the kind of swimming coach to give you feedback, but also, I don't know, if you're in a pool with friends, or even if you just kind of do a little bit of self-analysis and almost give yourself a little bit of feedback, like what did I do well in that? How could I improve that? What didn't go so well, and what could that be down to? Doing that will really help to build this kind of image of growing ourselves as swimmers. And then talk to others or even a professional about your beliefs. If you're finding that there's something that you're really struggling to overcome, it might be that there's some kind of deeper layers going on there, and there might be some core beliefs that we have about ourselves which sometimes are kind of hard to shift. So it might be that you kind of need to speak to somebody on a bit of a deeper level about how to overcome these things. Okay. So I just want to spend a couple of minutes just doing this mindfulness exercise, because I feel like that's definitely something that you guys can then go home and take away. And as we said, we know that mindfulness is really important in creating these kind of new outlooks, these new mindsets. So mindfulness is really about like focusing on our awareness, focusing on the present moment. And there may be thoughts and feelings and sensations that come up, but it's about just kind of letting them pass and not judging what it is that's happening. Now, I know that mindfulness is quite mainstream now. I think it's more and more acknowledged, which is amazing. I love that. And it's very easy to kind of implement it in your everyday, whilst you're training, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, washing up. Like, there's so many moments that you can be mindful instead of being really caught up in, you know, your day at work or what's happening in your relationship or how's training going, and kind of all these thoughts at a million miles an hour. And sometimes it's just really nice to just have a couple of minutes just to really like bring things to a much slower level. So if you will, if you don't already, so get yourselves comfortable. This can be really great exercise if you close your eyes, just because it can really help to internalize our focus, which is what we want here. And I'm just going to guide you just for a couple of minutes through a slight mindfulness exercise. And all you have to do is just really listen to the sound of my voice. You don't have to be anything right now. You don't have to do anything right now. This is really just about you giving yourself just a couple of minutes. And I want you to just start by noticing just your current experience. Like, where do you feel that your thoughts are at? Where do you feel that your emotional level is at? And as we said with mindfulness, this is not about judging what is coming up. we're just simply noticing what's coming up. And then if you just imagine those thoughts or those feelings, we're just going to place them maybe on a cloud that can just blow away gently in the wind, or that we might just pop it on a leaf that can just float down a nice running stream. Okay, so any way that kind of visually works for you, just want you to notice what's coming up, but then I just want you to notice you also just sending it away. You don't have to get involved in what it is that's happening. And then once you've got a kind of general awareness, I want now to just narrow your attention to your physical sensations of your breath. We're going to get a bit more specific here. And I just want you to notice that kind of inhale, maybe through the nose, and just noticing can you feel any sensations in the nose? What is the temperature of that like? Can you feel anything kind of as that breath passes through your body, maybe into your stomach, when it fills up your lungs? And then just noticing how that out breath feels. So when you just release that breath, notice what that does to your body. Does it help to relax you? Do you find that maybe your shoulders come down one or two notches? Just notice how that physical sensation of your breath feels. And then just expanding that awareness again, I want you to just notice your body as a whole. So notice your body as a whole, both the back, the front, the sides, where it is that your body is in the room. So notice maybe what you're sitting on, notice maybe the kind of four walls around you and where you are in your room. So now we're just expanding that awareness out. And then when you're ready, just take one or two just really big, deep breaths for me. And then when you feel ready to, just gently opening your eyes and coming back to the present moment. Amazing. So that is something that you can do yourself very easily. As I said, even when you're doing your kind of daily chores. So this is just something that we can nicely implement into our daily routine. So if you want to think, first of all, you just get a general awareness of what's happening. And then we get a narrow focus and focus on one specific thing, or it might be one part of your body. Maybe it's a part, for example, if it's an injured part, just like sending it some compassion and some love. And then we want to notice that expansion. So expand your awareness to what's around you and yourself as a whole. And then just kind of, maybe you want to put a little timer on your phone. But this is just something that is just so nice that I think can just help us to be more mindful, which will help support this growth mindset. Okay, so summary then. So starting to build your mindset, seek opportunities and create a space to learn. Use mindfulness as a tool to help create this space for a growth mindset, and know that this is performance enhancing and it's waiting for you. So this is an easy mental skill that you can add to your current day. Okay. And just a kind of thank you from me. Still, the habit cheat sheet is available from last time if you didn't ask for that, but you would like that. Couple of Instagram handles there. And then, of course, for those of you that are on Catch Free, you get 10% discount on any of my packages. And those of you that are part of Catch Gold will receive 20% as a thank you for being here. And our following sessions, so we got one on the 2nd of March, which is training versus performance mindset. So that'll be mindset again, but a different context and how it can help for competition, as well as your training sessions. And then 23rd of March will be about overcoming imposter syndrome, or swim syndrome, as I think Rebecca neatly called it during the title. Okay, I will stop sharing then, and then we're open now for any questions, which I would love to have.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That was amazing. I took so much away from that. I think what you were saying about like the steps to building a growth mindset felt so practical, and I loved the mindfulness exercise as well. And it got me thinking, you know, some of the growth mindset ideas that were popping up in the chat, from feeling more calm on the start line of a race through to feeling calmer when you go out into open water, that can feel quite frightening. Like, that feels like such a practical tool that we could use a lot more with swimming, or even just before a session that like scares you a little bit, a training session that feels quite challenging. Loved it. So yeah, thank you so much. I thought I'd kick off with a question, and we've got a few more minutes, so if anyone wants to drop anything into the chat to ask, feel free. I thought I'd pick up on this point about you mentioned, Rachel, the language that we use to ourselves really help or hinder your growth mindset, and that felt really true. And there's been lots of talk in the last couple of years about the value of journalism, journaling. So journaling about how you feel. Yeah, I was just thinking, you know, as swimmers, we log our sessions quite a lot. You know, people often have a place where they log their swim sessions. It might be Catch, it might be Strava, it might just be like, you know, you've got a bit of a calendar. You know, you can write notes with your sessions, you can record how you're feeling, things like that. I guess building up a bank of evidence, you know, journaling in some way that's associated with your training, is that also like a valuable thing for building a growth mindset? And do you have any tips and tricks for like how you can go about a logbook or journaling in a way that helps build a growth mindset?
Yeah, so that's a lovely question. Thank you. I think journaling is absolutely fantastic. And I think I quite often say to people to kind of journal kind of last thing in the day, and use it as a way to kind of release everything that's happened during the day. So if you kind of train in the evening, then that can be a great kind of thing then, because everything's quite fresh. However, if you maybe do your training sessions like in the morning, then it might be quite nice to write a few lines directly afterwards, just because what we want to do when we're journaling is kind of catch our thoughts in the moment. So it's a great way for growth mindset, because we can see on paper what it is exactly that we're saying to ourselves. How is it that we're saying it? And then once we kind of see it written down, I think it becomes a lot more concrete and a lot more obvious in, oh God, I'm using like that language quite a lot, or like, you know, I should be doing that. Is the language overly critical? Is the language overly negative, for example? And once we can see that, then it's another kind of tool for us, or another kind of platform for us to know where we currently are. And then within that journaling, then you can literally take, you know, another minute or so. You could even write the word like mindset, and then change, kind of write down anything. Maybe you want to use a different color pen, you know, get your favorite color out and write down, okay, well, that aspect there of the thing that I've written down from today, how can I change that so that becomes more of a growth mindset? And then once you use that, once you've got that written down, it's then about using that and applying that. So the first step is obviously the awareness. The second step would then be, okay, like physically writing, how can I change that? But then we also need to think about implementation. So tomorrow, can I repeat this, for example, in my training session? Or how is it that I can implement this tomorrow? And if you almost do it from like a day to day, then over time as well, and over the weeks, you'll probably notice that the way that you're writing and the things that you're saying should become more of a growth and positive mindset. And I love looking back at my journals from like, you know, 2 or 3 months ago and being like, oh, wow, like you can see the growth. And I think that that is like really motivating, and will want you to adopt that mindset even more.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, tracking, logging and writing is generally a really good thing for helping build that evidence bank that, yeah, like, and I guess that's interesting that like as humans we're often quite biased towards like negative things. I think it was something like you're 9 times more likely to remember something negative than something positive. So it's also remembering that although as humans we might have a really strong memory of like a training session that didn't go as well, or a race that didn't go to plan, but then we forget about the 8 other training sessions around it that went really well.
Good.
Or yeah, so I guess that's also
I think as well, just to add to that, which is really interesting, is we do have a part of our brain that it looks for patterns. So you know, like for example, if you say like someone says, oh, like I saw a yellow car today, you start thinking about yellow car, and then suddenly like you see like 5 yellow cars, but ordinarily you don't notice the yellow cars, right? So if we start thinking in a positive way and we start naturally trying to that to become our kind of default, our brain will then also start looking for more positive things that it can find. But the same is true for negative thinking as well. So when we start to think about negative things, you notice that spiral because your brain is looking out for patterns or other examples of where, yeah, that's not gone right either. So if we try to start adopting that more positive, that more growth mindset, your brain will also really help you to look for other things to, again, like you said, add to that bank and be like, oh, okay, actually, this could be a thing without too much effort. Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm interested in and folks, feel free to drop any questions into the chat. I'll keep asking away. I've got like a few things I jotted down while Rachel was talking. But yeah, I was curious about this balance of thinking and reflection versus taking action when it comes to developing a growth mindset, because quite a lot of the steps that you mentioned were about kind of noticing and thinking and reflecting and talking. But I guess there's also this really crucial element to building a growth mindset, which is like the action you've taken and proving to yourself that like maybe that wasn't as scary as you expected, or maybe you are capable of more than you think. So yeah, I was keen to hear from you, like what should that balance look like? Are there examples where actually taking action is sort of almost the better thing?
Yeah. I think like first and foremost, like that kind of reflection and that kind of recognition piece is just, I guess, to get ourselves like understanding ourselves. It's like that kind of self-awareness of like, okay, well, where am I currently at? Or like what areas maybe have I more fix and more growth? But actually the kind of implementation and the action is of course a thing that's actually going to get us kind of what we want. The kind of recognition, the reflection only goes so far. And I think as well, once we start taking action, that does kind of have that domino effect of like wanting to then take more action. And like you said, once you start proving to yourself that, oh, actually, I can adopt this mindset, or even like, you know, a lot of people, they can feel really confident and they have this growth mindset, for example, in sport. And that's like, you know, they're passionate about it and it happens very naturally. But then maybe, I don't know, at work or something, for example, you know, maybe they feel a bit more shy, they feel a bit more nervous, they don't want to kind of speak up or things like that. And it's also about, if we can do it in this way, like we can then take that and apply it to different areas of life. So by actioning it really well in something that you feel that you have the kind of strength, the capacity to do that, that can really help to also have a knock-on effect in then other areas, because the same things apply. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really lovely note for us to end on. I think maybe, yeah, just that point about, you know, like it can be done. And I really do believe, you know, swimming is it's a very learnable sport. It's highly technical, which makes it feel very challenging. But everything about it can be learned at any stage in your life. And swimming is a sport for everyone. So it's quite extraordinary as a sport how many points in your life it would be hard to do other sports, but swimming you absolutely can do. And you can be best kind of, you know, well into your later years. So I think as a sport, it's a really wonderful one for like, if you do apply that growth mindset, you can see progress, you can learn the technique changes, and you can physically take yourself into that next gear, those push those paces. But yeah, like knowing that and believing you can do it, and just having the tools so it makes it easy for you to do it is the key. So hopefully everyone's been able to take away some good tricks and tools for building your toolkit of growth mindset. Rachel, thank you so much for taking the time to share your knowledge.
Yeah, of course. Thank
It's
you.
been a great presentation.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you. And I hope that, you can all make the next one. And of course, any other questions, if you think about something, later on in the week or whatever, I'd be more than happy to answer via email. So yeah. No,
Great. Thank you, Rachel. And yeah,
Okay.
hopefully see you all at the next one. And have a great evening in the meantime, everybody.